And we are live. Welcome back to the LOOPCast. Today we got the full gang back together, Erika and Josh. No, we didn't plan to all wear the same color today. We're just that much in sync. And
it's true.
if you guys want us to drop the LOOPCast mood board outfit of the day Pinterest, it's probably not coming. Unless someone really wants to go above and beyond, it's probably not going to come. But look, Josh is a fashion icon. We've already discussed this. And Erika holds it down, but this isn't a fashion podcast. Yeah. This is a politics podcast, and we are 22 days away from Election Day. Josh, you going to make a point about early voting?
Well, I already voted, so I just want to encourage. I saw someone said they're from Central Pennsylvania. Get out there. Did you vote yet, though? Come on, get it in. Get those ballots in. And by the way, I feel even. What did I say? I said this like in July, right? That Trump would win the popular vote. I kind of feel like I'm going to get vindicated on this. And I think the Democrats are going to realize next year when Trump is sworn in that they were idiots for swapping Biden out for Kamala. I think Biden would have had a better chance in November than Kamala.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
some are saying there's been a vibe shift. Direct quote.
Oh, the Democrats are right. Did you see all the headlines this weekend? I mean, every headline on the left was like, Democrats panic, Democrats concerned. What happened to the Hispanic vote? It evaporated. And all these headlines were just like, I mean, I said last week they're doom spiraling, and I stand by that. I'm still gonna pray, and I'm gonna act like we're 5 points behind, but
yeah,
ironically enough,
there's a shift.
Trump and most Republicans and conservatives are not like overconfident either, which what I've seen from every indication is that people are like, we're going to still run like we're 5 points behind. Yeah. And that's good. You need to. Everyone needs to get out there, vote early.
My personal favorite headline, I can't remember where this came from, but it was why polls don't matter.
Yeah.
Like that is not a victorious tone. Yep. From one side, but
then you got NBC's, Kristen Walker, or whatever her name is, demanding that Trump release his cholesterol records.
Oh gosh,
that's a sign. The regime is freaking out. So it's just hilarious.
When Kamala Harris, who spent 3.5 years covering up for Biden, gets up there and starts saying, "Is Trump fit to run the country?" I was like, "Well, you would know, Kamala." It's and
then she was dogging Trump for skipping out on interviews.
Shameless.
I plan to get on all of this, but I'd like to offer a warm welcome to everyone here in the chat. Thank you guys for joining. We are here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and my mom's in the chat today. So what's up to my mom? Cool. I saw a nice message.
Janet.
Good to hear from you, Mom. But yes, if you guys would like to join, it is on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, now X, and Rumble. So you guys can join all over, join the chat. But thank you if you're listening on the podcast as well. Just leave us a like or a rating. That helps us out a ton. So what I would like to do, and go ahead.
Look at Leslie in the chat. She got a Catholic vote postcard, and her Arizona ballot is going to the post office today. Awesome, awesome news. Now, Tony was saying in the chat he doesn't trust the government agencies. Well, sometimes you're allowed to deliver that ballot yourself to your county or city clerk. I don't know the rules in Pennsylvania, so I'm not going to speak to that. But the fact of the matter is, the people in Arizona, that person there, she understood. A lot of voters came in Maricopa County to try to vote, and they ran out of ballots, and the machines were all down. That's why a lot of people are like, you know what? I'm going to actually get my ballot in early. So, again, Tony, look into the possibility of bringing it in, hand delivering it. But the sooner you get those ballots in, the less campaign spent on trying to get you to vote. So, anyway, we'll move on.
Okay. So, I'd like to make a statement on behalf of the podcast. This is a Columbus Day podcast. I'm going to come out and say it. The only person I'm actually offering a happy Indigenous Peoples Day to is Elizabeth Warren.
That's true.
Outside of that, it's Columbus Day. All right.
I'm a Viking, and of course, I love the earlier explorer, but he didn't stick around. We got to give credit to Columbus. He was there 500 years after the Vikings, but he stuck around. So we'll give him props.
All right, Josh.
If you think about it, Tom, isn't Christopher Columbus the only immigrant that liberals hate?
Well, they would have probably embraced him with open arms if they could get him to vote. But we're not in an era where that was possible. Kamala Harris had a different take. And first on Columbus Day, I'd like to share my favorite Columbus quote. And there's many, actually, but I'm fond of the Man in the Arena speech. I actually have it up behind me if anyone wondered what that is on the YouTube. But the quote is, "Let those who are fond of blaming and finding fault while they sit safely at home ask, why did you not do thus and so?" So haters on notice. Kamala Harris had a different message for the country this morning, and I'm about to screen share that.
It is an honor, of course, to be with you this week as we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, as we speak truth about our nation's history. Since 1934, every October, the United States has recognized the voyage of the European explorers who first landed on the shores of the Americas.
Even say his name.
But that is not the whole story. That has never been the whole story.
Here it comes.
Those explorers ushered in a wave of devastation for tribal nations, perpetrating violence, stealing land, and spreading disease. We must not shy away from this shameful past, and we must shed light on it and do everything we can to address the impact of the past on Native communities today. It is an honor of...
Oh my gosh. So typical.
I'm just going to set this up. Erika, I wondered if you had strong thoughts on Columbus Day. I confirmed yes.
That is confirmed.
Why do you think Columbus Day, what do you think about Columbus Day? Why do you think there's this modern effort to kind of get rid of it and change it? Thoughts in general?
Yeah. I mean, her whole clip there is just sort of an encapsulation of what's been going on in the fight against Columbus Day. Probably the best thing I've read on Columbus is from Robert Royal, 1492 and all that. I think he republished it recently under a different title after the 2020 George Floyd riots. But what's going on here with Columbus and Columbus Day. First of all, it is a patently historical absurdity for her to say that somehow Columbus or the Europeans were the ones who ushered in devastation, violence, what was the other one? Disease. Yes, there was devastating consequences as a result of European diseases being introduced. There were bad things that the Europeans did, but the idea that somehow the world here in the Americas was some utopia of this agrarian, peace-loving society before the Europeans came and made it bad and devastated them is so simplistic and stupid. I mean, we have accounts, and Charles Mann's books 1491 and 1493 really demonstrate this. The native tribes that were here were just as in the grips of original sin as anyone who ever came from the continent of Europe or the continent of Africa.
Nice way of putting it.
Right.
Yes.
Eating children is another way of putting it.
Eating children. I mean, last year we reported on this discovery in the Mayan jungles in the Yucatan Peninsula, this discovery of a pit full of 500 3 to 5 year old boys who had been sacrificed. This was not some like utopian Pocahontas, like, oh, it's Disney, like, and we came and ruined it with our bad Christians. I think that one of my heroes of the Columbian expeditions was Bartolomé de las Casas, who was a Dominican friar who came over here. And he knew Columbus personally. Bartolomé and the Dominicans who followed him, they spent their lives and they gave up their comforts in Europe and their exalted class as priests to defend the natives, not only from Europeans who came to exploit them, as they were exploiting anyone in their paths, but also from each other. They were trying to save, Indian women from sexual slavery under Indian men. This was the cross came to the Americas because of Columbus. And as a result, good things happened for the native populations that would not have happened otherwise. That's why when Cortez marched into Mexico City, all those tribes that the Aztecs had subjugated and were literally killing ritually on their pyramids, they joined forces with him because he was a liberator. He was a liberator. Yeah. And this whole attempt to this whole attempt to whitewash, or to not whitewash, sorry, that was the wrong word. This whole attempt to take take the natives and the indigenous peoples and say, victim class, everything they did was great. Europeans, victimizer class, everything they did was evil, is simplistic, and it's weaponizing history in order to, I think, to create in the Americas a population now, a generation that has no moral roots and no pride in its civilization, because Kamala Harris and the people she represents and works for want to tear down our civilization. And so they hate Columbus Day because it roots us in our past and in things we can be proud of. And they raise up Indigenous Peoples Day because it's a lie and it's a falsehood.
Well, and a dominant theory in the 18th century, 19th century was manifest destiny, that somehow white Europeans had, dominion over all peoples, and they could just control, subjugate people. And that was wrong. Just like this current, Kamala Harris infused left-wing kind of stuff, that all, white people were bad and the natives were peaceful, like hippies that just wanted to, kumbaya together. It's a bunch of baloney. It's like the truth is actually somewhere in the middle. And actually, right, for all Catholics, we have Our Lady of Guadalupe to use as a great unifier. The Spanish priests who came into Mexico were unable to really win over that many converts. Only about 5-10% of the natives became Catholic because of these really good Jesuit priests that really were holy. But it was after Our Lady appeared in Juan Diego, and there was that beautiful image on the tilma, and then you see that what is it? It's a pregnant woman, obviously. The image of Our Lady. And you can see the little black tie on the image, mm-hmm. She's pregnant, and she's standing on top of the moon and in front of the sun. And the natives at the time were like, who could this woman be that's so powerful that she is standing on the moon, which they believed in they believed in a moon god, they believed in a sun god, and they would kind of worship the serpent. And here's this woman, she's standing in front of the sun on top of the moon, and she's pregnant. What is this woman, and who is her king? The Catholic Church has given us this wonderful title of Our Lady of Guadalupe to try to breed unity between whites and the natives, and I think we should call on her for peace between them. Not to think that we were somehow destined to rule the continent, but also not that mm-hmm. we should feel so horrible about everything we do. I mean, it's to me, it just kind of strikes me as crazy. You have a culture here in the United States for the last several generations that has just kind of, I don't know, it's gone on this ritualistic mode where all my white ancestors were so evil, and I feel so shameful that my great grandparents were, evil. It's why do you feel like you're good like this? And if you keep doing that, it's like a forest that gets no water, and some communist like Kamala Harris comes by with these lies, mm-hmm. lights it up. Yeah, and had a culture that would actually say, you know what, we did some things wrong, but we did some things right. God darn it.
Yeah, there's mm-hmm. there's no apology good enough. Basically, you can keep apologizing, and it's never going to be good enough. They're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. At some point, you have to just draw the line. And with Columbus, and someone brought this up, Michael Knowles actually did do a very good, simple PragerU video on this. I would recommend it. But I think this is kind of the latest of a lot of, not latest, but today, of a lot of complex historical events that are already in themselves kind of hard to understand when you apply modern constraints to it. And I think about this a lot when it comes to actually recently the debate over World War II, but for sure when with the Civil War. And people just like to use historical events to push their kind of ideological nature. I'm not saying it just happens on one side or the other, but I think just looking back on it, what I appreciate is I appreciate the bravery of Christopher Columbus, who came from kind of an unusual means. People are still trying to get back to the exact origins, but didn't have a lot of money. He came from a time where people, lords, royalty, they had the money to do this kind of thing. Christopher Columbus was, I think his dad was like a wool weaver or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he was an explorer.
Isabella gave him the money, right?
Right, and he had the courage to go across the seas, sail for 10 weeks into nowhere. No one knew what was over there. And he went and he accomplished it with the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Shout out to my education in elementary school. But it truly was a historic accomplishment, and him getting credit for bringing Western civilization to the New World and all of the good that came with that, and of course some of the bad. But I'd say as a whole, to not be embarrassed about the riches that came from Western civilization, chief among them being Christianity, of course, but new technology, new ways of encountering other people. The country we built largely on Western tradition. It's not something to be ashamed of. So sure,
Right.
like if we want to look back at it as a historical day, it frustrates me that you got politicians like Kamala Harris that want to use it as a bludgeon to continue to divide, separate, and make people angry.
Exactly.
When we could look back on this historically and be like, wow, this is this is an amazing accomplishment for a true explorer. And there's things that come with that we should talk about, but we can all acknowledge that it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the danger here is that she's using it, as all the left is, and we saw it especially. Last week we had the what's his name, Ta-Nehisi Coates issue on CBS. I don't know if you covered that on Friday, but we have this whole intellectual elitist class that takes history and uses it as a weapon to consolidate their power today, right? This is they don't see it as what it should be. And history should be for us a study of, it should be an independent source for us of wisdom. It should be a source of insight. We should learn from the past. One of the greatest homeschool curriculum out there right now, Mother of Divine Grace, what they do in high school is they have the students study ancient history, and then they study it all the way up to, then they do the incarnation. And then they ask them to go back and evaluate ancient historical figures like Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar, first against the standards of their day, against ancient values, against the classical virtues, and then against the Christian values and virtues, and to have a discussion about, do we hold historical figures, do we hold them to the moral standards of today? And Kamala Harris is like, absolutely, we do.
Right.
I mean, Columbus.
And she's not the
evil.
first to do it. She's not the first to do it,
No.
but she's a long line of people that choose to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just an excuse to totally dismiss every accomplishment that anyone you hate has ever made, the categories of people. And like you said, it's a tool to divide and to disrupt.
Yes, Tony
so ignore it.
says in this house.
I was just
Christopher Columbus.
I was just going to bring up the Sopranos clip. Yeah, for sure. Chinatown.
And you can do that while acknowledging like people suffered, but it's not black and white the way she makes it.
Straight to Josh's heart. There's a lot of Italian Americans in Pennsylvania. Let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are. And there's a good chunk of them in Michigan too.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Okay, so speaking of explorers, and this I guess isn't, we cover a lot of things, but this is one thing I saw, and it's just like, we are capable of so much, and it's really just genuinely inspired me, and I think it had this effect on a lot of people. Elon Musk just caught a booster. SpaceX did.
This is crazy.
I'm like, how do you?
So cool.
I wouldn't have even thought to do this, but here we go. I don't know if I play with audio, but the cheering does give me chills, so maybe I do. Here we go. Here's the booster literally being caught.
Landing burn has been ignited. We're now down to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now in the rear.
Nicodilla had caught the booster.
This is absolutely insane. On the first ever attempt, we have successfully caught the Super Heavy booster back at the
Look at
launch
that.
tower.
Yeah.
What an incredible view!
That is so cool.
They're carried away. That is awesome.
I mean, if that doesn't give you chills, man, you don't have
That's
a
pretty
pulse.
So here's the thing about this too. I mean, like Elon Musk was asked about this, and he's just like, "Why are rockets cost so much? It's not the fuel. Fuel's only like 0.5% of it or whatever. It's that you can't reuse the rockets." And he thought, well, if there was a way that we could like bring the rocket back to Earth and reuse it several times, that would be a lot cheaper. So while Elon Musk is, and the private sector are coming up with ways of making rockets reusable and thus cheaper, what is NASA doing? They're raising the intersex progress pride flag for the first time to celebrate Pride Month.
I mean, there's so many obvious hypocrisies that you can point out here, and I have a few more, of course. But just to first, focus on the accomplishment here. The first trying to catch a legit rocket. So the booster came off the thing, came back down to Earth, And so potentially speeding up man's path to Mars is what he's saying. Definitely to the moon, because you don't have to rebuild after something blows up. Like you can just reuse what you've already built and send it back up. An insane engineering marvel. So at 40 miles in the air, it detached from the ship, began coming back down to Earth. It used 4 fins to steer itself into the waiting arms of 2 chopsticks, as it's called, which gave the bear hug similar to one you'd get from a friend after a long journey.
Oh, it's adorable.
Seriously.
It was awesome.
I'm ready to break out in a USA chant. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so fired up on that energy. We can do anything. We can actually go to the moon now. We can actually do it for the first time.
Yeah.
Crazy. This is going to be awesome. One other thing I did want to bring up is, so we're catching boosters, which is already hard to wrap my mind around.
Well,
that.
it's
boosters. Wait, I got something, Josh.
Before you get to that, still on the same subject, though, it's and NASA has stranded 2 astronauts.
And Elon rescues them.
Right. I mean, people aren't even talking about this. I mean, NASA is, just did a grant with Johns Hopkins University to study whether or not how racist the air is.
No, tell me that's not real.
So we'll also
$186,760.
So California officials are now trying to get him to stop launching rockets. I mean, I
you just can't make it up.
They hate him.
So I looked into the article, and I want to give a little bit more clarity for the audio listeners who can't see this. So California rejects bid to increase Starlink launches, citing Musk's controversies. Elon Musk's conduct played a role in California Commission denying a proposal to increase Falcon 9 launches in the state from 36 to 50 this year, okay? Mm-hmm. And so take a look at the commissioner here. They're talking about his political they're saying his political speech has been unsettling or something
problematic.
Like that. Spewing and tweeting political falsehoods, attacking FEMA, while claiming his desire to help hurricane victims with free Starlink access to the internet, which of course these Falcon 9s would provide, is more internet. It's a sick ploy to gain customers that are facing tremendous burden and dire straits, since it requires hurricane victims to spend $349 on Starlink hardware in order to receive only 1 month of free internet access. So, I mean, this is coming from the private sector, of course, where you have to pay. And the public sector, Kamala gave $750 on an app to a place with no internet?
Right. No, this is the thing, like the ineptitude of the government on the NASA front and on the FEMA front, and Elon is just stepping in and using his power and his money and to actually get stuff done for people. And then they're like, how dare you get stuff done for people because you have the wrong opinions about things. And then for California to deny him, he can't continue to do his business there because of that. Obviously Elon is suing. But again, it's forcing him into lawfare, and what a waste of time. Right.
Well, I saw an interesting part too, that the military itself has the power to overturn this commissioner vote. It was a commissioner vote that went 6-4. And I mean, I'll be the first to say, look, there's some bureaucrats that are probably necessary. I'm not a huge fan of them. The middle managers. Okay. Maybe we need a few. There's way too many right now. You're telling me that 10 people in California get to decide that they don't like his tweets so that he can't launch literal internet into the space to give to people?
I mean, it's like a villain out of an Ayn Rand novel. I mean, it's just so bizarre.
As NASA has 2 astronauts they just straight up stranded right now in space, and they're sending in SpaceX to go get them. SpaceX is very much a part of NASA ambitions right now because they're pulling stuff off like this. How else are we going to get in space?
Right. Yeah. I know. And if you don't like Elon, then get your stuff together. I'm not going to say the S word. Get your stuff together.
Good job, Erika.
And thank you. And do it yourself. It's nature abhors a vacuum. And if NASA can't get their stuff together, someone's going to step in and do it. And if it's the guy you don't like, instead of attacking him for doing what you couldn't get done, why don't you just do it yourself, for heaven's sake? Instead of being so concerned about, is the air racist or sexist or trans, get up into space yourself and rescue your own astronauts.
Erika, can I do a callback?
Yeah.
Let those who are fond of blaming and finding fault while they sit safely at home ask, why did you not do thus and so?
But it's so easy to sit back and ask why should you do it doesn't so. That's the thing. That's why people like Kamala Harris, like that Coates dude, they love to sit back and say, here's the way it is. Here's your victim. Here's your victimizer. Here's your oppressed. Here's your oppressor. And you don't have to do anything about it. You just sit back and be like, yep, that's the way it is. I'm a bad white person. That's why they have so much purchase with the liberal leftist white women of New England, because it's so easy. It's so easy. There's no cost.
They want everyone to be
discipleship
victims
with
so that the
Coates.
government will be the savior so that they
Right.
can have more power. It's pretty
Exactly.
simple.
Right. It's a religion.
Speaking of people not accepting that things the way they are, and I'm going to term this the continual JD Vance media tour of just obliterating everything in sight.
It's glorious.
So I have a clip. So he went on New York Times podcast and with this lady named Lulu, who I think is pretty seasoned. She's been around for a long time. I would just like to start out with, I highly recommend listen to the entire podcast. It's the definition of a trap. Like use your Star Wars voice. It's a trap.
I made my high schoolers watch it so that they could see the ambush and the how to get out of the ambush.
Yes.
They loved it. It was great.
It was an hour long. And people are bringing up the Kamala interview with Tucker, with Harmeet Dillon, talking about who Kamala is. I did see that as well. I'm going to address that soon. But he went on the New York Times and he talked about a lot of things. And this is probably the best example from the interview. I highly recommend, again, go listen to the whole interview. But this is a common premise that I see just generally accepted, which has always been a little bit bizarre to me, but everyone's kind of just through osmosis accepted it, that we need to basically have a shadow labor force of illegal immigrants working construction. Otherwise, our society is going to fall apart. Okay, so that's the setup to this interview, and here's the answer. It's worth watching in its entirety, I promise. Here we go.
There is the reason that there is a housing crisis is that not enough houses have been built.
And that we have 25 million people who shouldn't be here.
Well, I mean, this is the thing.
I think it's both.
I know you do. I don't think that many people who look into this agree with you, but
Supply and
about a
demand.
third of the construction workforce in this country is Hispanic. Of those, a large portion are undocumented. So how do you propose to build all the housing necessary that we need in this country by removing all the people who are working in construction?
Well, I think it's a fair question because we know that back in the 1960s when we had very low levels of illegal immigration, Americans didn't buy houses, didn't build houses. Of course they did. And I'm being sarcastic, of course, in service of the point, Lulu, the assumption that because a large number of home builders now are using undocumented labor, that's the only way to build homes. I think, again,
The country is much bigger.
a fundamental.
The need is much bigger. I mean, I'm not arguing in favor of illegal immigration. I'm asking how you would deal with the knock-on
Kinda
effect
are.
of your proposal to remove millions of people who work in a critical part of the economy.
Well, I think that what you would do is you would take, let's say, for example, the 7 million prime age men who have dropped out of the labor force, and you have a smaller number of women, but still millions of women prime age who have dropped out of the labor force. You absolutely could re-engage folks into the American labor market. This is, I think,
To work in construction?
Of course you could.
I mean, the unemployment rate is 4.1%. Most people who
unemployment rate, Lulu, this is important.
But
The
most people who
unemployment-
don't work can't work in the regular economy. They're in the military, they're parents, they're sick, they're old. They might not want to work in construction.
The unemployment rate does not count labor force participation dropouts. And again, this is one of the really deranged things that I think illegal immigration does to our society is it gets us in a mindset of saying we can only build houses with illegal immigrants when we have 7 million, just men, not even women, just men who have completely dropped out of the labor force. People say, well, Americans won't do those jobs. Americans won't do those jobs for below the table wages. They won't do those jobs for non-living wages. But people will do those jobs. They will just do those jobs at certain wages. And think about this from the perspective of an American company, okay? I want them to go searching in their own country for their own citizens. Sometimes people who may be struggling with addiction or trauma, get them re-engaged in American society. We cannot have an entire American business community that is giving up on American workers and then importing millions of illegal laborers. That is what we have thanks to Kamala Harris's border policies. I think it's one of the biggest drivers of inequality. It's one of the biggest reasons why we have millions of people who have dropped out of the labor force. Why try to re-engage an American citizen in a good job if you can just import somebody from Central America who's going to work under the table for poverty wages? It is a disgrace, and it has led to the evisceration of the American middle class.
The reason
Amen.
Yeah.
Democrats
Preach.
used to talk like this 30, 40 years ago, and they haven't. Why? And so we still get these political campaigns where a bunch of old, white, rich liberals pretend like they're sticking it to the man and say, oh, how could you vote for the Republicans? They only care about the rich. Hello? Wake up and smell the coffee. I mean, it is the Democratic Party that is importing millions of people who are taking slave wages. That's bad for them. It's bad for us. It's bad for everyone. JD Vance, thank you. Thank you for finally bursting that bubble of, oh, we just have to have millions of people in the country illegally to do slave wages. Otherwise, our economy won't work. Who's going to pick the grapes? Maybe Americans will if you pay them enough. My goodness.
Yeah. It's like one of my favorite clips of all time. Who's going to clean your toilets, Donald Trump, from the lady who's on The View, thinking that she was making a great point. Like,
I mean,
no,
like someone else on The View was like, that really sounds terrible. Shut up. Like,
because it is. Yeah.
How could you say that?
Talk about an oppressor mentality. I mean, what's going on?
Jeeves, who's going to do that?
Yeah, right. I know that not even Jeeves, because at least he was also British. But no, I this was the clip that went viral, but the whole interview was along those lines. I mean, JD just came across as so patient with Lulu and like responding to her, and she just keeps asking these questions that are clearly designed to be like, I'm exposing your hypocrisy, and he would just be like, no, Lulu, the facts are XYZ. And she opened up with this question that was
insane.
Insane.
Yeah.
Who is the real JD Vance? Because we saw you at the debate and you seemed so reasonable and so moderate and so fact-based. And then we see you on the campaign trail and we see the clips of you and you sound angry and frustrated. And he looks at her and he's just like, well, Lulu, haven't you ever had moments of frustration? I think every American has had a moment in their life when they've been frustrated, but then they also have moments where they're more reasonable. And he's like, yeah, I get frustrated sometimes. And sometimes I have time to actually be more, express my feelings more with moderation. And he was just so darn reasonable again. And he encouraged, and she just kept coming back and be like, but isn't there a division? She basically was trying to get him to say, okay, you're right, I'm schizophrenic. I have one personality here and another personality here, and you never know what you're going to get. And he just kept bringing it back to like this reasonable, let's talk about the facts, let's talk about Americans and what is actually happening in our country. I think he totally disarmed every attack she brought.
Right. And I couldn't help but think this was they even had a moment in there where from your leaked emails with your transgender friend, you said that you hated the police. Do you hate the police? Why do you hate the police? And he's like, well, Lulu, that was from a specific moment where someone in San Francisco broke into my car and stole priceless items from my wife that can never be replaced. And the police gave me we'll look for it. And I sent a private message to my private friend.
He even referenced the Big Lebowski.
Like the Big Lebowski. And it's like, I'm even more angry right now than he was answering it. Like, I'm angry that she would even take that attack line. So a few observations from looking stylistically. And I know we definitely have a few like videographers, photographers who listen to this because they email me. But both Erika and Josh are like, oh, you got to point this out. Yeah, if you look at how they lit JD,
the lighting,
the lady was very, very intentional. The shadows on his face, she was more open.
She needed all the help she could get, frankly. I agree with someone in the chat. She looked like Dustin Hoffman at Tootsie.
Sorry, Lulu.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want about her appearance, but even just me looking at this, like I'll share, this is the title he was given here. And sure, these are stylistic choices, but
he just kind of look badass. I like it.
You go down here, shadow here, light here, and then the top comment on YouTube, this backfired, no question. I mean, everyone's reaction to this was, wow, he came off really calm, he answered every question.
Right.
And one thing that I really appreciate about JD going forward is that he's just put on a masterclass of, I just think there's so many examples that I'm hearing now. I even had a friend, I was just talking to a friend who's like, I traveled to the state of Washington in 2021. He showed me some cool pictures from hiking. He's like, I could not believe that there was tent cities, like entire tent cities, and that it's not either received more coverage or that someone was like, why we should not have, this shouldn't be how this is, right? Like there should not be tent cities of homeless people addicted to drugs. Like there just shouldn't be a reality. But a lot of people in a lot of media intentionally, are basically trying to trick people into thinking they need to accept a lower standard of living than you need to. And JD Voice has been one of the clearest, calmest, most articulate voices of saying, no, we do not need to live this way. There's very easy solutions to that. Maybe not easy in execution, but simple solutions in execution, how to solve this. And the America that I want you do not need to accept a lower standard of living, all for the guise of social justice or progress or virtue. It's not virtuous to have, a shadow workforce made of illegals that are getting paid poverty wages and have fear of being deported if something goes wrong, basically owned by their employers. I've seen it, right? Like I've worked in landscaping circles. I know people that work in construction. There are these big labor forces of people that accept lower wages because it's better than what they can do in their country, but are truly at threat of deportation at any second. And the employer basically holds the gun. And
it's called a slave-based economy. Like this is not good.
It's so simple. And I will say at this point, and this is where I'm not a pure capitalist, and I definitely disagree with libertarians on this open border policy. This needs to be solved at the federal level. There's no mechanism below the federal level that can secure a fair economy for Americans and fair opportunities for Americans below that.
Well, and this is what a federal government should do. I agree with you, Tom.
Right. And the state level can't fully accomplish it. Private businesses cannot accomplish it. They're actually many times benefiting from this type of thing. The federal government, as its duty to its citizens, owes this to us.
Yeah.
And we should be ashamed of that.
Right. And what will happen inevitably if the federal government fails to act on securing the border and on the deportations and cleaning up the mess, is that if individual states try and do it, so like we see Texas trying to do it on their own, and we see Oklahoma, what inevitably will happen, the problem is the borders between our states are too porous and we have too much free motion between our states.
Which is a good thing normally.
Which is a really good thing. Like we want that. I want to be able to drive through Massachusetts to get to New Hampshire to visit my family. We need it for our economy. We're totally dependent on that as our American culture. But what would happen is you would end up having states securing their borders as states, and that would be just devastating to the United States of America. It would be awful.
Right. Texas tried to do that, and then this Biden-Harris government shut them down through the federal courts. And then, of course, I always like to make this point. Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton talked about the fact that, unfortunately, these social media companies are allowing humans in this country, citizens, to exercise the First Amendment right to free speech. And that means we don't have, she said, total control anymore over the news and the information. Yeah. So they want total control so that they can enslave us. I don't know how people don't understand this. Like this is danger. And like, they won't even let us, like the federal government has been derelict in its duty. This president and this vice president have been derelict in their duty to protect us from the southern border. And so you're right. Texas tried to do it and Texas was stopped. It's like, at some point, you are worried about, like, are we going to even have elections anymore? Are we going to have civil unrest, civil war? Because it's like, it's absolute anarchy. The fact that it isn't like this presidential race should be like 80 to 20%. My goodness.
So
like, it's just immoral, this government.
I have another example on the same beat of a lot of what you guys are saying, and I will share now. JD Vance went on this week with ABC, and this might be the craziest news clip I've seen in a long time.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. Yeah. Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad.
Only guys.
And then she has a clip and goes, "Yep, see, it was just a handful." Like she really thought that was the winning point.
She thought that was a
because Trump, she said, was wrong because he said the whole city was being invaded. It was only a few apartment complexes, not the whole city. Like to Trump's point is it was invaded. It is a part of that city, Aurora, Colorado. I would somebody said this. I can't claim this as my own point. I forget who said it. Wouldn't it be amazing to see if in her like neighborhood of Chevy Chase, Maryland, or wherever she lived, you had several houses maybe in her neighborhood that were overcome, and we could all just say, Martha, what's the problem? It's just a handful of your neighbors' houses that were invaded by violent Venezuelan drug gangs. There should be no problem, right? And walk your dog.
Not exaggerating, right?
Obviously, you know what could completely prevent this, right? No legal immigration. Right? I mean, what is the acceptable number of apartment complexes taken over by Venezuelan gangs? It's zero. We don't have to live this way.
What we need, though, is
why
more...
would you even argue on behalf of living this way?
We need more billionaires, not just Elon Musk, to have a little courage here. Because these companies, these media companies do come up for sale every once in a while. ABC, NBC. What's to stop some of these billionaires? Don't just throw millions of dollars into political campaigns. Buy ABC News, buy NBC, and then clean house.
Right.
You know, like what we should only have one network that's a little bit kind of moderately conservative. This is garbage.
So I actually did find a very interesting thread on Twitter from the CBZ management. They were actually the managers of these Aurora complexes. Now, I'm going to come out first. First off, there's almost 24 million views on it at this point in time. I looked up the CBZ management Google reviews. It's 1 star. Like they're very unpopular. And look, I'll be the first to say when I look for apartments, I look up their Google reviews and I'm taking a look at this kind of thing. So here's my hunch before we get into what they have to say. I think that CBZ has taken a lot of pay-per-go and NGO money to place Venezuelans within their complexes. And now at this point are kind of like, oh my gosh, a Venezuelan gang just broke into someone's home and people are squatting in them. We now need to say something. I think they were probably doing sketchy things before, but they're basically, the national conversation has been, and if you Google this on Google, this is what's going to come up, that it's a hoax, that it wasn't really what happened, there were no gang takeovers. I mean, you want to take a look at some of the footage here. I mean, this is a guy going in to check and him just getting the crap beaten out of him down the hallway at one of the places. We have ring cam footage.
Martha Raddatz.
Ring cam footage of people just busting into people's houses. I mean, it's hard to acknowledge, like, whatever you want to call this situation. If I have foreign nationals breaking down doors with, long barrel rifles in my apartment complex, there's a problem. I don't know what else to say.
It's going to happen.
So they're coming out and saying that no one took us seriously. We wanted the National Guard sent in. The National Guard wasn't sent in. The police basically disregarded us. I mean, it's not good. So they were getting threats here. So regardless of the exact truth of the situation, it kind of reminds me of the eating cats thing. Again, like the real question is, well, why are there thousands of gang-related Venezuelans in Aurora? Why are there, 2,000 Haitians in a small town in Ohio? That's the real question there is that, which I think JD Vance has been doing a great job of bringing attention to. How many are acceptable? What's the answer? It's zero.
Exactly. And that guy was beaten up and you saw all the blood on him. And you just imagine if like one of these people in the apartment complexes, if they somehow exacted revenge and captured one of these Venezuelan thugs, threw him out wearing just like a diaper and tied him up, that there would be a national conversation of the racism, but there'd be no problem right now. There's no media coverage of American citizens of all colors who are being attacked and brutalized and vandalized and terrorized in their own apartment complexes in their own city by people who are not citizens of this country, who are here illegally. But your corporate media elite, they don't care. Again, not hypocrisy. It's not hypocrisy. It's a hierarchy. They have different rules for you. They don't care about you. They hate you.
Yeah, and there's one more thing on the JD Vance front that I wanted to talk about, and then I actually want to answer some questions that we've had submitted. So the big liberal takeaway from the JD Vance interview, of course, people that didn't think that, I think they think he did a good job, but this is the big clip they took away, was that he quote unquote dodged the January 6th question, whether or not Donald Trump won the election in 2020. That's all I see from these liberal outlets, the only takeaway they had from this interview. And almost at this point, I'm curious both of your perspectives. What is there a proper answer to this question? I mean, I'd like to point out first that before you guys go into this answer, we have from top Democrats, they're not committing to certifying a Trump win. Shocker, shocker. I mean, there's plenty of election denialism on the left. Go back to Stacey Abrams. It's not like this is a completely one-sided problem. And geez, I mean,
Right.
So what do you think? Is there a way to answer to this? How does he handle that going forward? What would you even recommend?
You gonna let me go first? Is that what you're doing?
I'm going to let you go first on that one.
I've been very clear about this. I think, there was a lot of shenanigans with regards to the 2020 election. Voting by mail is not the most ideal. Just if you do it, you need to have signature verification. We have that in my state. But because of COVID emergency, the communist attorney general in Michigan decided to waive those regulations.
Is it Dana Nessel?
Yeah. So the problem with that, though, then is if you work at a nursing home and you're some blue-haired commie 20-year-old, punk, and all the ballots come in for all the old fogies, you can take that whole ballot up, in the mail and fill every one of them out, and then just for the signature thing, just you don't have to do anything because they're never going to verify. What they're supposed to do with the signature verification is check that with the signature on the driver's license with the state of Michigan. That's how you're supposed to do it. That's how you verify that's actually him. So that's why my daughter's like, well, how should I sign this? Like, you need to sign it just like it is on your driver's license. If it's too far away, they can throw it out. So that's the whole point. But they got rid of that. And so that allowed for a lot of shenanigans. And so a lot of ballots could be, filled out illegally. And then once they get mailed in, and if you're not verifying the signatures, then you've just got a whole stack of ballots and they get tossed in with every other ballot and they're counted. And after election day, you lose Michigan by 150,000 votes. And you're like, wait a minute, what happened? Who really won? You know what? I don't know. But the fact is, if you don't stop it at the beginning, I thought the Trump campaign in the summer when these state officials in Pennsylvania and Michigan were doing these things, you should have got the courts involved, the Supreme Court, and put the darn brakes on all that stuff and say, no, you don't, just because it's a COVID emergency doesn't mean you get to throw all that stuff out the window.
Yeah.
But that's when you should have stopped it. After all the ballots are put together in a pile and run through the machines and counted, it's too late to say, well, wait a minute, some of those in that pile were probably illegal. At that point, it's too late. And so by the time you get to January 6th, sorry, you have no way of verifying. I'm sorry, you have to accept it at that point. You lost it. In other words, 5-6 months before.
Yeah, and I think that for as far as JD's response goes, or anyone's response from the campaign goes, the answer can be like, do we think there were problems with the way the election was carried out? Yes, but let's look at what Trump did. Everyone's like, oh, he's such a threat to democracy. Well, he was contesting the way that some of the votes were counted in some of the states. Absolutely. We all have a right to do that. But what did he do? On January 20th, he walked out and he did not try to come back, right? That regardless of what he thought the outcome was, I'm not interested in like, oh, what's this theory? What is he thinking at that point? I'm interested in what did he do? And he accepted the results insofar as he said, I will leave the White House. And he did. And he did it peacefully. People point to January 6th as, oh, that wasn't very peaceful. But again, like that's all been debunked. If you watch the whole,
it wasn't peaceful. There was a protester that was shot and killed by Capitol Police.
There was, yeah, right.
Now, I think there was I do think the American people, by the way, despite the entire corporate media, and the Democratic Party pushing a narrative of this for months and months and months and months and years and years and years. The American people still think, it was a protest that got out of control and it was a little stupid. And that's what the average American thinks. And I think they're right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's frustrating how much this is talked about when a lot of the COVID draconian stuff isn't really brought up for Kamala Harris. And maybe people just moved on and don't care. But like to me, a lot of this election is punishing the tyrants that abused the American people in 2020, 2021.
January 6th, dude.
Yeah, and January 6th is, I mean, not
You know
really
why
on my
they
mind.
love it, Tom. You know why they
I
love
do,
it.
yeah, because it's all they got. I mean,
No, it's not just that. It's that this is the one day in the last 200 years where they can say they were patriotic and the Republicans were the ones that were against, the Constitution.
We are the saviors of democracy. They hate him. Yeah.
It's just like,
defenders of democracy, of course.
I think it's tired. I think it's a tired angle, and I think that the votes are going to show that it's a tired angle, that Trump denied the election. Right. Well, the other thing too is if you have any questions about the way the 2020 election was carried out, like what they're asking is, going forward, we need to fix it. Like, we need to have voter ID. We need to have some kind of signature verification. And if basically what the left is trying to do is say, you're not allowed to ask any questions about 2020 because that makes you an election denier. And if you're not allowed to ask questions, then you're not allowed to try and fix the broken system. So I think Trump continuing to bring it up is actually good, because how else are we going to avoid fraud? But the Democrats don't want to avoid fraud. So of course they're like, every time he questions the way that the ballots were counted. Well, yeah, they want us to question that.
Erika, don't you remember how the liberals are like, it should be easier to vote than it is to get a gun? And it's like, you want to blow your head off. You're like, oh my gosh, it is 1,000 times harder to get a gun than vote, you idiot.
I know.
Voting is super easy. You don't even need your ID in a lot of places. It should be harder to vote. I mean, the same standard for flying an airplane should be for voting. It's like, we want to encourage as many people to fly as want to. We want as many people to vote as want to. You just need ID. Crazy.
So let's fly into some questions then, huh? I think we got time for two today.
That's a good segue. That was cute.
Thank you. So I really appreciate this email, and I'm going to keep his name out of it. I didn't, but I just want to give the example here. So this is from a 21-year-old about career advice. Hello, Tom. I'm an avid listener of the LOOPCast and love the work that you do and all the Catholic Vote does. I wanted to reach out to you because I want to get into a career in either Catholic Vote or doing something that will make an impact on the world. I am 21 and currently work for an energy company, and my work is not fulfilling. I want to work for a Catholic organization and make a difference. Unfortunately, my degree does not relate to politics, even though that is something I would like to possibly pursue. Do you have any advice on how to get involved or what kind of jobs to look for in order to get my foot in the door? I would appreciate any tips/leads. Thank you, and God bless. So, you guys, we do this podcast a lot. I admire both of you professionally. Do you have any advice you'd like to offer for this young man?
I'll let you go, Mercer.
It's so deferential today.
I am. I'm just feeling like I want to hear your wisdom. Let's go. Right?
I mean, first of all, it may want to just start out as a hobby because, and test it out, see what you think of it. I mean, obviously it's already October of an election year, but even if you volunteered for the last 2-3 weeks of this campaign, you'd feel, there's lots of different races going on. But you could just get involved. And then maybe what you could do is start a local group in your area and just say, here's what we're doing to advance, find out about the issues that matter to the voters in your area. And, maybe, I know it sounds crazy, but maybe you run for city council, maybe you run for, do something, get involved. There's, honestly, there's not as many people that volunteer that are needed in local level. And so when you do, they're always looking for somebody. And if somebody who would be young, they'd love that. And so they'd be like, there's always some commission where they're needing to put people on to appoint for something. And you could serve in that capacity. You could also just, organize. You could start your own organization if you want to. We need more people who do that, by the way.
Right.
Like, that's what, Brian, Joe, and I looking around in 2004, 2005, we're like, there really ought to be a Catholic organization, and there's none out there. I guess we'll have to start it. Look at what's going on right now on the landscape and see what do you think is missing. If there's a voice that's needed out there, like maybe it's people who are in their 20s need a voice. From a Catholic perspective, there's lots of opportunities. I would say start trying to do a few things. Just getting your toe in the water, because after a while, people find out that you've got a lot of industry and you're motivated and you want to do more. And then they'll start, this guy really knows his stuff. And you'll just start getting elevated, and you'll end up doing a lot of things. I mean, one of our coworkers here at Catholic Vote was actually, she was in college and she had a health scare. And so she had to leave college for a while. And then she gets back and she's healthy, but it wasn't the right time to go back to school. And so she just decided to help out on the campaign. Before you knew it, this campaign's like, this lady's a dynamo. And she's, after a while, she's running a whole field program, running a campaign. And then she gets promoted and all this other stuff. And she's like a star. And people are like, this person knows their stuff. And that's why she's, in charge of our entire field program at Catholic Vote, because she's amazing. We love Logan. She's awesome. So those kind of things happen, I would just encourage you to roll up the sleeves and volunteer. And after a while, you build up for a while, then you can take the leap from your full-time job and do politics full-time.
Yeah. And I would just say too, to echo what Josh is saying, it's better to actually get on the ground and do stuff. So yeah, it would be great to have a degree in political science and all this, but it's better to actually live it and be on the ground. And similarly with journalism, like if you wanted to get into journalism and writing, I would just say like start writing, go places, go to events, go to political rallies and talk to people and just write what they say to you, right? Like just put it down in writing, practice doing that and get boots on the ground. It's better to do something yourself and to organize something yourself, even if it's not a moneymaker, to demonstrate, like Josh said, it's hard to find people with industry. It's hard to find employees who just do what they say they're going to do. And if you can show that you're a doer, that's really attractive to employers.
And
just
politics,
practice.
I gotta say, politics is a very merit-based system. You see these shows where it's like, someone who's, on Fox, they always have the, super beautiful people on there. I get that. But when you're talking about actual campaign stuff and elections, you show that you can win, open the doors, man.
Yeah. And I would just say too, it's really hard to be in that position. I feel like a lot of people could probably relate with that, where they're not in the job they maybe say they want to have, or they're looking for a job, they're unemployed. It can be very discouraging. So I just want to encourage you. Everyone is there at some point, or even if they're in a job, maybe they lose the luster for it. So I say keep your head up, and for sure, like the thing that I always say too about jobs and careers is they will come and go. And even if you're not in the dream job now, or you are in your dream job, not much of it's really going to matter if you're not taking care of your spiritual, emotional, mental, physical health. So to prioritize your prayer life, to really be prioritizing your physical health, because that's something you can't get back. It's going to help you in all those other areas. To Josh's point too, keep your day job. I think, especially when you're young and you're not married and you have kids, I guess I don't know necessarily your situation, you do have the time to work that day job, keep your income, be able to pay your bills, and then also start getting after something you really want to do. So I would say I'm always a pretty big proponent of typically keeping your day job so you can keep the bills paid. And then, at least from my perspective, so like I guess I'm on somewhat of the creative end of this, as work in photography, started this podcast a little bit more on the editing side before I started hosting. Portfolio is everything. Back to what you were talking about hard political, Josh, but if you're talking about the creative space, the first thing I look for if someone applies or is even in front of me is what have they done? What can they do for me? That's just how can they solve problems that I
show
need
your
to
work,
solve?
yeah.
Show your work. Like if I need an editor, I want to see what you've edited.
Same with writing, right?
And what's cool is you don't necessarily in the beginning to know, first off, your first try, it's probably not going to be very good, and that's okay. Like you want your 100th video to be better than your first video, and your 1,000th video to be better than your 100. And that's okay. And there's such a low barrier to entry for that. Like YouTube, you can learn whatever you need to learn, and then look at examples that you like, keep editing, keep getting better. And then I'm going to look for someone, hey, I need an editor. I want to see that they understand my problem. They know what I want, that they can deliver it. That's gold to me. Like the worst examples I've had is when you work with someone that cannot do what they say they can do. And usually it's because they did not have the experience beforehand. So I'm always looking for that experience. And then also as a younger guy myself, I remember being that age, and you have a huge advantage right now. Most people want to help out young people because they remember being there themselves. So you can identify people, like either you think they're doing really good work, you might be interested in something that they're doing, people you admire, reach out to them personally. There's plenty of ways to reach people now, obviously respectfully and be respectful of their time, all that kind of thing. But show that you've done some research on them, bring up examples of their work, tell them what you appreciate. They're going to want to help you out in most cases. So asking for advice, trying to make connections that way, that's usually how I gained a lot of my success. And I'd like to first point out, as we're on a podcast, this is not my first podcast. So this podcast was not my first attempt. I had to do many things before that to get into the place where I could even think about starting this thing. So your first thing is not going to be your best thing. It's just going to keep getting better. So keep your head up. And if people have advice here, this could be a good forum for this. Email it to me. Maybe I'll get some good career advice from the LOOPCast listeners here, and I could maybe put something out that maybe everyone would appreciate. I really think about this as a community, so I'm sure people have way better answers than I do. So I have time for one more before we get in the Twilight Zone. So LOOPCast is global. Hey, Tom, it's Benny here. I was at last Wednesday's episode, Benedict from Germany. Even though I now live in Germany with my wife, I am originally from Austria. Sound of Music is what most Americans know of my home. Also, Sound of Music is pretty sick. I
think of the Battle of Vienna, but that's cool.
Of course you do.
They're right there. I mean, neck and neck.
Sound of Music, Battle of Vienna. I mean,
sorry, Benedict. Okay. Also, I was a folks missionary for 2 years. Had a teammate of mine originally introduced me to CV. I want to let you know I love the LOOPCast. Try to listen to every episode, mostly when I'm in the gym or on my way to work. You guys are doing a great job by reporting on current affairs in the U.S., coupled with developments in the Catholic world. Still, I have 2 questions. 1, are you going to broadcast, live stream, comment the U.S. elections? I'm a huge fan of the U.S. and will definitely follow the elections live and would love to do so together with you. In case you are not, which streams networks would you recommend me tuning into? So to answer that first one, yes, we will be live for a portion of the election on election night. It's funny, we've done election parties in the past, and Josh is like, I just want to be on my phone and following everything going on. So we're going to get him in front of a camera. We're going to have plenty of commentary for you live there.
It's going to be fun.
We will have something. There will be news coming on that. So I want to put that out there to all of you. Similar to how we've covered debates, we will be live, have the community together, have the chat going. It'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully, a positive night. And then number 2, I would say I have a general knowledge of the USA, its history, but I still feel like there's so much I need to learn. At the same time, I feel that you guys, especially Erika and Josh, have such extensive knowledge about the political system, history, and church in the U.S. and similar topics. I actually agree with that. I would love for you to have some episodes where you talk not so much about what's currently going on, but give some more basic formation about the U.S., especially from a Catholic perspective. Maybe you can do that when people are on holidays or 1 time a week or 2 times a week or so. Thanks a lot for the great job you're doing. From Germany, United in Prayer, Benny.
Like an American Politics 101, huh?
I think that could be cool.
I think that would be super fun. I think
that's a good idea.
And Josh would love it. It would be awesome.
What did I say to you on Wednesday, Erika, remember?
I think you basically outlined what he's proposing.
That's an amazing coincidence, but yeah. That's actually
I don't know. I think little Holy Spirit action maybe happen in there. A little
my thought would be
of the Spirit.
Here's the thing is I do think there's just yeah, I mean, hey, we're on the ramp up to our, might as well start celebrating now, right? We have 250th anniversary of our country's coming up in about 18, 19, 20 months from now. So let's just gear up for that. Do a little politics 101, but I feel like it should be politics 101, like, hey, this is how our government works. And then politics maybe 201, which is like, why are really stupid things happen? And it doesn't make any sense. It's like, there's a reason. Yeah. I think actually a lot of economists can help us understand economics pretty well. And that's why when I went to Hillsdale and studied political economy, take those additional classes on economics, it really opened your eyes, because sometimes you get this cartoonish, I'm just a bill, trying to get elected, like Schoolhouse Rock. It's like, that's not how it works.
You got Schoolhouse Rock?
I hate to burst your bubble.
I love Schoolhouse Rock, okay, but it's like,
don't hate on
catchy.
That's not how our government works. Yeah.
So hey, if we let's get some chat confirmation. Maybe we could come up with something inside the trust tree. Yeah. Maybe we could come up with some historical stuff. It would really tickle Josh's fancy for sure. And if it's about war, Erika's in.
I'm in. As long as we address all the wars.
All right, sounds good.
Especially, I'm really into the French-Indian War right now. But oh my gosh, I've opened a new can of worms for myself.
Okay, all right. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. All right, here we go. Josh, Twilight Zone, you're up first.
Yeah, so I mean, the Kamala campaign realizes that they're running a big gender gap problem with men, And so someone decided, I guess the guy with Jimmy Kimmel's, wrote this ad and they filmed it. And it was all these strong men for Kamala and she's just a boy, real men vote for Kamala Harris. And it shows this guy sitting on a tailgate and this other dude, with the white t-shirt and just looking all kinds of funny. And I mean, everything about this ad was just so peculiar. Well,
Josh, no man has ever sat in a tailgate like that ever. No straight man has.
Yeah.
Just not happening.
That's kind of how you sat on the couch for that episode.
No.
With shots fired.
Incident. No. Incorrect. I had some very masculine thighs showing, okay? Very straight thighs. Don't like that.
That was painful, man.
Yeah, it was a moment.
So, I mean, all these guys are actors in the ad, which isn't surprising. It's an ad, but like 80% of the actors were gay, including a bisexual Nigerian immigrant. And so it just, I don't know, maybe the reason why the gun hunters in Manton, Michigan aren't really gelling with the Kamala Harris campaign is because they don't sit on their tailgates like that.
Josh, can you explain this joke to me? I don't understand it.
Oh, no, this one is mine. This is me. So this was Rod Dreher posted this as Christopher Guest, who's the director of Waiting for Guffman. Very funny satirical film. And he's anyway, this for those of you who know Christopher Guest movies, it was as if Christopher Guest was hired by the Biden or the Kamala Harris campaign to formulate their ads.
What are some movies by Christopher Guest?
Okay, so we have A Mighty Wind was one. We have this
it's all the mockumentaries, right?
Mockumentaries, yep. What was the other one?
They did didn't they do the one about
the dog show one?
The dog show, right?
Yeah, the dog show one is there.
Yeah, that was like the first mockumentary, I think.
No, not the first. No,
the first was Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Spinal Tap was Pogo. You need to get yourself cultural literacy.
You got to take it to 11 here, Pogo. Come on.
I never seen Spinal Tap. I just thought that was the first mockumentary. Was the dog show one? I forget the name. But hey, we have Cecilia Pappas is in the chat.
Oh, hey, Cecilia.
First off, the amount of people that have said they've discovered the Loopcast from What in the Dang Heck, we probably owe you some commission on. So thank you for sending a ton of people here. We love the podcast too. Go check it out. What in the Dang Heck for the ladies and some of the men if you're into that. Maybe some of the men in that commercial.
Right. Christopher Guest.
My favorite was the guy who's like, I eat carburetors for breakfast. And he legit was like 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, why would you have him deliver that? That was bad. And then there was also a part of the ad where they said that people shouldn't watch Little Women. Like they don't want women to watch Little Women. What? Who's saying that?
No, I think the whole point was that they're so proud and comfortable in their masculinity that they'll watch The Notebook and all these other, girly stuff, but they're still tough men. And it's like, look, the whole argument over masculinity, I mean, just kind of drives me crazy. Look, I live in a very rural area. Okay. I don't have a green thumb. I'm not a farmer. Like, I don't go hunting. I could if I wanted to. I have guns. Don't try to mess with me.
Do you know how to load them, or are you like Tim Walz?
I'm not like Tim Walz, but but that's the thing. I wouldn't go out there like I got my cowboy hat. I'm an NRA guy. Hey, like, look, I have guns because I hate tyrants. Okay. But I'm not like, I'm a writer. Okay.
Keyboard warrior.
That's right. I mean, I'm comfortable enough in my own masculinity. I mean, like this, we get some of this, fake masculinity stuff. I think it drives me kind of crazy, but like, I'm there if you need me. That's what a man is.
Sweet.
Yep.
Word.
Preach it.
Erika.
All right. Well, I'm going to go for the women's corner here. I was very distressed to see the news.
Oh, this is bad.
The news is from Netflix. I'm going to go on my little film tangent here. Yes, Netflix is going to produce a new Pride and Prejudice. We need yet another adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. Who is going to write this new adaptation? Well, they chose a woman named Dolly Alderton, known for her series of books such as like Everything I Know About blank, fill in the blank. So her memoir is Everything I Know About Love. First of all, we do not need yet another.
Yeah, wait,
Pride and
can I stop you there? Do
Yes.
you not like the Tom from Succession version?
What? Tom from Succession?
This this version
guy?
of it.
Keira Knightley.
No,
It's the worst.
Oh, you
No.
don't like it? Okay, you're
and
out
in
on-
fact, I think that this adaptation by Netflix might even just surpass the Keira Knightley version as the worst ever.
So you're
and
an
I'll get into
originalist.
Keira in a minute.
You're an originalist.
I am an
when it
originalist.
comes to
I am
the Pride and
a
Prejudice.
Colin
Okay.
Firth. I am
Got
a
it.
Colin Firth. Jennifer Ellis. Like, yes, that is the perfect. No one needs to further adapt this. But
Got
here,
it.
this is from Dolly Alderton, her memoir. She says, she's talking about like girls' night out. My mom often told me that it was a misguided act of feminism, that emulating the most loutish behavior of men was not a mark of equality. But I think there were moments when those years of partying were a defiant, celebratory, powerful act.
Oh, no.
A refusal to use my body in a way that was expected of me. I was starving hungry for experience, and I satisfied those cravings with like-minded ramblers. And it created a gang mentality that none of us have ever shaken off. Okay, how Jane Austen is that? 0%. It is negative Jane Austen. So this is going to be just the worst ever. It is another example of how our
Jane
culture,
Austen.
I know, our culture cannot come up with any original stories. We can't do anything original. We just have to go back and cannibalize what was true, good, and beautiful from previous iterations of our civilization. I am so like, come on, no more Pride and Prejudice. And yes, Keira Knightley is the worst. That was the worst adaptation.
She was pretty
Jane
sick in
Austen-
Pirates of the Caribbean.
She was good as like pirate girl boss.
Okay.
Terrible as Lizzie Bennett.
Had to get that in
Terrible Lizzie Bennett. They took Jane Austen's beautiful prose and they sucked all the wit out of it just to make it like this. Oh, I could go on and on. I hope
Keira Knightley needs to eat more. She's too thin.
She needs to eat more.
Did you hear
She's so
that?
Emotive.
Did you hear that on the last episode, Friday's episode? MMO described dropping the handkerchief as a way to. Are you familiar with what that phrase?
Wait, like to get the guy to bend over.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like basically you signal to a young man that you'd be interested in talking. So it's dropping the handkerchief. You want to
And
drop.
he can
the
pick it
handkerchief
up and say, "Did you lose this?"
There you go. And look, I'll be the same to say Jane Austen, Emma, maybe the record for the most boring book ever written. I could not. Unbelievable read. I had to read that for Regina Chaley. What the heck? It's about nothing.
Dude, you were a 17-year-old boy. Yeah.
I read it now and I agree with that take. It's about
It is about
nothing.
The roles of males and females in romance.
Nothing.
It is.
I'm more of a Beowulf guy. I thought Beowulf was sick.
That's okay.
They made me read Emma, and I was mad. I almost was hate reading Emma because I'm like, is it going to get to something here? Is something going to transpire?
No, it's like a bunch of women talking. It never gets to anywhere.
Yes, I was like, this is insane.
It gets to the wedding day. What are you talking about?
All right.
That is like anyway.
Look, I got supporters in the chat. I'm pulling a Josh. I'm galvanizing the chat. It's an insane book, but Pride and Prejudice. My wife likes it, so shout out Colin Firth. So mine.
Yes.
So I
never had a desire to watch that show.
My Twilight Zone continues to be me just talking about things that I like. So, actually, it's going to be me, things that I like and things that I don't like. So, speaking of school, the Walls campaign, I think, had disappointing returns on the outreach to men. Started out with maybe the most maligned commercial I've ever seen in recent memory. And so they're like, we couldn't get, Walls couldn't load a shotgun. And the ad flopped. So let's pull out the big guns. We're going to bring out his wife, Gwen Walls. And this is the strategy that's really going to get men.
This will get the guys.
We're going to have her put on her teacher glasses and remind you of every teacher that you hated as a man or as a boy when you were in school. So here's the ad real quick.
At HQ, I'm Gwen Walls, and I have been an educator for a really long time. And I'm here with an assignment for you today. It's due on November 5th. Now I'm going to put my teacher glasses on because this is really serious, like a final, and there's no late work. I need you to take yourself and 3 friends to the ballot box and make your voice heard. You have to vote. I'm going to repeat that again.
I'll vote against your husband.
3 of your friends have to make your voices heard by voting. If you need more information, just go to iwillvote.com. And remember, no late work.
Now, this woman repeating no late work to me 3 times. Just
who is this supposed to appeal to?
Not me.
White women who hate men.
Again, I can't vote for Trump any harder. This is just pushing me over the edge. I don't have multiple votes. I can only do it once, and I can't vote any harder than I already am.
Yeah.
This whole tone just makes my whole body
blood
light on
boiling.
But
condescending.
So that's their pitch to men at this point. Seems like they're really
I'm embarrassed
struggling.
to be a woman when I see stuff like that.
Now, what is Trump's pitch to men other than getting shot and getting up? I'm happy to report Trump's going on Joe Rogan, guys.
Yes.
Sound the alarm.
I'm so excited.
He's going on Rogan.
Yeah.
We're back. We're so back. He said he's a good guy. Now, you guys know that I'm a bit of a Rogan head.
You are.
And also I've been talking about this with my dad. So there was some stuff about the potential third assassination attempt. I think there's it's up in the air. They're not sure. They found a guy with guns and fake IDs at the Coachella rally in California. And I just think that we continue to see now, and Kamala Harris, I think, just accused Trump of running a basement campaign. And
they're hiding him?
I'm not exaggerating.
Not releasing his medical record?
Right. She's accusing him of running a basement campaign and then not being transparent about his medical record.
Doom spiral.
And avoiding interviews. It's
almost like they don't think we have a memory past 30 days ago when she would replace the man that she claimed was an excellent mental fitness and ran a basement campaign himself. But now here's the thing. I think he should run a basement campaign from here out. And I think he should exclusively do podcasts. I actually don't even think he should be doing rallies right now. Why
not both?
Because his biggest threat to winning this election, in my opinion, is not Kamala Harris.
It's getting assassinated.
And he does not need to put the surface area of threats at these big public outdoor rallies where clearly people want to kill him. This is like the third try, potentially. Second for sure. And it's not worth, to me, it's just not worth it. Think about how much more people he's going to reach by going on Rogan here and the safety. I like that trade. So I think
he can do Rogan, but he can keep on the campaign. We should be able to keep him safe from love. Come on.
I mean, I'm praying for him. I saw the headline, and I talk about this all the time. My dad's the same way. We really need to pray for Donald Trump's safety. Clearly people want to kill him. This isn't a normal thing in American politics. Maybe there's been assassination attempts we don't know about that have been kind of covered up for whatever reason. But 3 now in a month is unusual. That's the biggest threat to him. It's not Kamala Harris. It's not losing this election. So really want to be safe, but I'm excited for him to go on Joe Rogan. I will report back. I will be listening. So shout out to Joe and Trump for squashing the beef there. And it's going to be awesome. The Rogan heads are going to be out in full force. That being said, it's a great episode. It was fun. High energy.
It was a good time. I think it was the color coordination that really.
The color coordination did it. Maybe Cecilia can make us a Pinterest board. She's in the chat here. She's big into fashion. I think green's our color, guys.
I like red. I like anger red.
Anger red. Well, I got my little Red Wing on too, so there's a little red in there. Little angry as usual. Angry populist Tom kind of comes out from time to time. So thank you guys for joining here live. If you want to help us out, leave a like on this episode. Helps a ton. If you want to subscribe, leave us a review on podcast. Email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org, so we have more questions to answer. I actually have a little bit of a backlog, but we will get to them. Pray for us. St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, St. Fidelis. Pray for us. We're praying for you guys. Pray for the election. We're praying for you.